In 1612, 12 people were arrested in England on charges of witchcraft. Their trial would become one of the most famous in history. They were living in the area surrounding Pendle Hill in Lancashire, northwest England. The area around Pendle Hill, at the end of the 16th century, was regarded by the authorities as wild and lawless. It was a remote and isolated region. It was a land of superstition and fear, and the people who lived there were easy prey for those who wanted to accuse them of witchcraft. The atmosphere surrounding witches in 1612 was one of distrust and wariness. People believed that witches were capable of all sorts of evil, including causing illness, death, and even storms. The 12 people were accused of murdering 10 people, including children, by using their magical powers. Who were the Pendle Witches? The Pendle Witches were mostly made up of two local families, who were constantly falling out with each other, and their friends. These two families were headed by two elderly widows called Elizabeth Southerns, known as Old Demdike, and Anne Whittle, known as Chattox. The Pendle Witches were arrested after a series of accusations from local residents of witchcraft. An illustration of Anne Redfern and Chattox, two of the Pendle Witches, from Ainsworth's novel The Lancashire Witches, published in 1849. The Pendle Witches were accused of a variety of crimes, including murder, causing illness, and attending sabbats, nighttime gatherings of witches. They were also accused of flying through the air on broomsticks. After all 12 were arrested, as part of their trial, they were required to walk from Pendle Hill to Lancaster Castle, where the trials took place. The distance between Pendle Hill and Lancaster Castle is approximately 30 kilometers, 18.6 miles, in a straight line, but it was considerably longer over the rough terrain. This would have been a significant journey, especially considering the historical context and the conditions of the time. The accused individuals, who were already under immense stress and facing serious charges, had to endure this arduous journey as part of their trial. Lancaster Castle was built in the 11th century and was used as a prison until the 19th century. The trials of the Pendle Witches were highly irregular. They were held in a dark and dank dungeon in cramped and filthy conditions. The accused were not allowed to have legal representation, and the evidence against them was often circumstantial. They were not allowed to cross-examine their accusers, and the judges often interrupted their testimony. The evidence against them was often based on hearsay and superstition, and the judges were clearly biased against them. The judges were determined to find them guilty. Of these 12 people, 9 were sentenced to death after being found guilty of performing witchcraft. Old Demdike never made it to the trial. The ghastly conditions at Lancaster Castle prison were so terrible that she died in her prison cell. I'm from Yorkshire, so I was tried at York, where I was found guilty and hanged. Alice Gray was the only person out of the 12 Pendle Witches who was found not guilty and was free to go. After their sentence, the 9 who were found guilty were walked across the city of Lancaster from Lancaster Castle to the moors above the city. Here, they were hanged. The trials of the Pendle Witches were a dark chapter in English history. They show how easily people could be accused of witchcraft, and how easily they can be found guilty. The Pendle Witches were innocent people who were executed because of the superstition and fear of their time. Their story is a reminder of the dangers of intolerance and the importance of justice. The Pendle Witches were victims of a time when superstition and rumor ruled. Their story is a reminder that we must never forget the power of prejudice and ignorance.